Moving to Southeast Asia now and the continuing confrontation between Vietnam and China. It's over a Chinese oil rig parked in the South China Sea. Vietnam says the rig is located in its waters. China says it isn't. The row has seen dozens of different vessels of the two countries playing high seas chicken, spraying each other with water cannons, even ramming each other. One Vietnamese fishing boat's been sunk. The standoff has reverberated throughout Asia. China's been criticized by other Southeast Asian countries, and both the U.S. and Japan have chimed in, accusing Beijing of destabilizing the South China Sea by its coercive actions. China is outraged at the criticism. Here's the state-controlled broadcaster, CCTV.
Another clash in the South China Sea. A Chinese Coast Guard vessel fires water cannon at a Vietnamese ship after it harassed a Chinese oil rig in the area. The two boats later collided. No injuries were reported. It comes just weeks after a similar incident sparked violent anti-China protests in Vietnam. Chinese businesses and nationals were attacked, with at least 20 killed. Vietnam now says it is considering filing an international legal suit against China over the contested shoals in the South China Sea. Prime Minister Tan Dong says his country has evidence and is waiting for the right time to file the action. At the recent Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore, the U.S. and Japan seemed eager to take sides.
In recent months, China has undertaken destabilizing unilateral actions asserting its claims in the South China Sea.
We likewise support Vietnam in its efforts to resolve issues. Movement to consolidate changes to the status quo by aggregating one fait accompli after another can only be strongly condemned.
Shinzo Abe even offered to provide Coast Guard ships to any neighboring countries that he described as wary of Beijing's tactics. China fired back, denouncing the Japanese Prime Minister and U.S. Defense Secretary for their provocative words.
Who exactly is instigating trouble here? When it comes to matters of territorial integrity and maritime demarcation, China has never instigated trouble, but only responded appropriately to provocation by others.
We should restrain any unilateral change of status quo, unilateral provocations. And there have been this kind of developments, and China has confronted with some difficult challenges. The position on the Chinese side is that when we are confronted, for example, when the Philippines send their naval vessel to harass fishermen, when the Japanese government decided to nationalize the so-called nationalized Diaoyu Island. In the final analysis, I think it's very important to come back to dialogue, come back to negotiations.
The latest tension has been ignited by Chinese oil rig beginning drilling operations. It's located just 14 nautical miles from the Shisha Islands in the South China Sea and 130 nautical miles from the Vietnamese coast. Guanzhong, CCTV.
Earlier this week, a Vietnamese woman self-immolated in protest against the Chinese oil rig. Onlookers watched as the 67-year-old woman burned at the gates of the former presidential palace known as Reunification Palace. Police said they found banners next to her with messages like "Demand unity to smash the Chinese invasion plot" and "Support Vietnamese coast guards and fishermen." One problem for Vietnam is its dependence on China. Trade stands at $50 billion a year, well above other partners. But Vietnam's rubber stamp parliament is pushing to cut reliance on China. Lawmakers met this week and agreed to step up their strategy against China. Here's Vietnamese state broadcaster VTV4.
The deputies strongly condemned China's illegal action in Vietnamese territorial waters, reaffirmed their strong determination to defend the country's sovereignty, and agreed with the party and government's policies.
We earnestly request the National Assembly to call on people to promote patriotism, work hard and stand side by side together with the government to successfully implement national development and defense tasks.
Many deputies agree that Vietnam's economy is seeing signals of a modest recovery. They then propose measures to develop an independent economy from any market, especially Chinese markets.
Last year, our exports to China accounted for 9% of general export turnover and 23% of imports. For years, we've taken many measures to improve our balance of trade with China. We have signed 8 free trade agreements and are negotiating 6 more. These agreements will facilitate Vietnamese goods to penetrate other markets.
NA deputies also stressed the importance of agriculture and aquaculture in the economy and agreed with the government's plan to spend 16 trillion Vietnamese dong of the state budget on marine police and offshore fishing.
We need preferential policies to support fishermen to get cheaper loans to upgrade their fishing boats and facilities to develop the sector. That will contribute to boosting the country's marine economy, protect seafood resources and national sovereignty over sea and islands.
The NA deputies also suggested the government tighten public spending and unnecessary projects for economic development and national defense.
Airwaves, a global channel of uncompromising stories, world news, documentaries, entertainment, and culture. Link TV, connecting you to the world. For more information, visit linktv.org.